We need to talk. If you looked into any tier list made about WutheringWaves from pre-release up until now, there are a few questions that are asked no matter what the content is, it doesn't matter. Is this character future-proof? Will this character get power creep? These are two of the most commonly discussed issues when talking about Jiyan, and today I'm gonna get to the bottom of it. To be clear, both of these questions are very hard to answer. Asking if a character is future-proof or if they'll ever get power creep has too many factors in it. On one hand, there's no way a profitable company will let you use every single character that you pulled years ago for the rest of your game life, and that's obvious. It doesn't make sense for them as a business to let you do that, and the only exception to this is maybe the main character. But as we've seen with other gacha games, even the main character can change. That being said, there are still answers to give, advice that can be used even with all this in mind. Let's break it down. Now, in order to answer a question like this, we need to define what future-proof means. A quick Google search and a couple visits to dictionary.com shows that future-proof refers to a product or system unlikely to become obsolete or fail in the future. This makes sense. But in truth, most people that ask about whether a character is future-proof or not aren't really asking to see if the characters will be good tomorrow or in a few days. They want to know if this character is going to be a waste of time and get power crept before they can even enjoy them. But here's the problem, knowing the answer to that question is impossible. Since we aren't part of the development team, foresight into whether a character will be power crept like that is usually shaky or kind of just a guess. So unfortunately, this first question doesn't really have a straightforward answer, but we can break down what is strong about his kit and why I actually think that this question does have an answer, it's just not the one that you might be looking for. So how do we figure this out? Let's take a look at Jiyan's performance in the Tower of Adversity, aka TOA. The reason we look at TOA is because this is a major source of asteroid and also how most people decide the strength of resonators. Based on what we saw from the first tower cycle, Jiyan performed incredibly. He had the arrow bonus from the tower effect, he had an increase in damage from his resonance liberation, and he could deal with the multi-enemy stages very easily. His value was also very high because you could use him for pretty much any stage as well outside of just the monkey, which was arrow resistant. So case closed, he's OP, right? Wrong. Many gacha games currently create content specifically tailored to newly released characters. Honkai Star Rail does it, Genshin does it, pretty much any company with a desire to make profits will do it. The issue is if these characters end up being unfairly showcased as strong or powerful on release, but then feel weak once the content doesn't cater to them. Let's take a look and see if this is the case for Jiyan. We know that he was powerful when he had the arrow bonus, but what about for stages that don't have this? Well, interestingly enough, I cleared the last Tempest Mephis with Jiyan when he was given an arrow damage increase, and this time around, I decided to take on Mephis again, but this time without the arrow damage increase. The result? It was cleared, and even though the stage itself wasn't favored towards Jiyan, he was still able to clear at level 80 with the setup. So as you can see, this is my Jiyan. He's got 62 crit rate, 127 energy regen, 2100 attack, 230 crit damage. He's got a Verdant Summit, and it's only rank 1. He's got no sequences whatsoever. But when you swap to my other characters, my Verena is literally level 50. She has no levels in any of her echoes, and my Mortefi could use some love too. I mean, seriously, look at the investment that I have into his forte tree. Now, to be clear, my Jiyan also doesn't have a lot of his upgrades, like he's level 80 and his upgrades for his skills are only at 6. But remember, this is me specifically at 80 only and not even at 90. So there's a lot of room for me to grow as well. From this, seeing that Jiyan specifically is able to clear with a team when he's not maxed and having basically dead weights is a good sign. Another positive for Jiyan is that there aren't that many good arrow AoE characters too. Your alternatives are basically Zhang Jin, who really does not do that much damage, and Alta, who is definitely just worse than main DPS Jiyan. So if you do need to clear multiple enemies quickly, Jiyan's your guy. His future proofing may not be guaranteed, but at least for now, his value hasn't dropped much. With that, it's fair to say that he's definitely not fallen off as 1.1 rolls around. But what about being power creep? Unfortunately, this one doesn't have an official dictionary definition, but the idea behind power creep is a certain flaw in game balance design where content released later as opposed to earlier tends to get more powerful as time goes on. So Jiyan himself may be good, but what if Jiyan 2.0 comes out? What if Jin Si or Changli end up taking his job? Well, fortunately for this question, there is an answer that I can give. Whether or not a character gets power crept comes down to two factors: when it happens and how it happens. As it stands, Jiyan could very well be the next character to be power crept since he was the first banner to release. Honestly, he doesn't buff anyone else. He's a greedy damage dealer who doesn't do much outside of, well, deal damage. But if you pause for just a moment, he's actually much more than all that. He's an easy to play AoE damage dealer who scales specifically with heavy damage and the arrow element. And why is this important? Well, in order for him to be Powercreep, you'd have to find another AoE arrow damage dealer. Our next best option that fits that role, it's Jiyan. And I mean, seriously, look at her damage and compare it to Jiyan. Side note, I will be making a guide for Jiyan. Thank you for everyone that voted on the poll. I appreciate it a lot. Let's just say Jiyan's numbers aren't impressive, and I'll show you in that video later why. For this video topic though, power creeping Jiyan might be a bit harder than we expected. Normally, you could argue that any AoE damage dealer could take Jiyan's spot, but since we've seen that the tower can favor things like basic, skill, liberation, heavy, and all these different damage types, alongside element damage bonuses as well, this is actually not as simple to do. And before anything else, to be clear, Jiyan's damage is not low. It's like literally 900,000 damage. Unless there's a specific Tower of Adversity effect that punishes you for doing AoEs, or if there's something that specifically makes Jiyan himself do less damage because of his kit, he has one of the highest damage outputs in the game when on equal ground. These are pretty big conditions that need to exist for Jiyan to be worthless, and the likelihood of all these happening at the same time is really low. That isn't to say that I don't have concerns for Jiyan though, because I definitely do, so let's get into it. First off, if you aren't familiar with Jiyan already, his best combo includes Mortefi. Now the reason why I mention Mortefi is because this guy works super well alongside Jiyan. He enhances heavy attacks by an insane amount, and the damage that he puts out is some of the highest for a non-hyper carry DPS. But Kana, you may be asking, aren't these all good things that you just mentioned? Well, yes, they are. And guess what? Many characters will end up wanting Mortefi on their team because of how good he is. This, unfortunately, kind of acts as a flaw. If you're stuck using Mortefi on another team, Jiyan's strength drops by a lot. Fortunately, we don't have too many characters that pair even better than Jiyan with Mortefi at the moment, but once that character comes out, Jiyan's gonna have to rely on his uniqueness as an AoE arrow DPS as opposed to a nuker that you can slot in anywhere to do a load of damage. This is the fear that players should have when they're considering pulling for a character. If the other resonators that complement and make a character super strong end up being used in other team compositions, well, that's when problems really start appearing. Now, instead of having a powerful Jiyan Mortefi composition that does hundreds of thousands of damage, it's Jiyan Alto and it does so much less. The question of whether Jiyan will be power crept or if he's future proof has no real concrete answer. These questions have too much subjectivity in them to really answer 100%, but here's what we know. He can still clear the Tower of Adversity even when the arrow bonus isn't applied. His unique arrow specific playstyle doesn't seem like it'll be recreated in the near future, and the other AoE arrow characters either do so much less damage or aren't multi-hit, and therefore they're way worse from a pure DPS standpoint. To top things off, the towers also seem to usually favor some sort of pattern, including element damage and type of damage bonuses. So ultimately, guys, if you have fears about pulling for a character and thinking that they'll be power crept, even for the most likely character to be power crept or a character that is deemably not future proof, he's got a long road ahead of him and you'll find good use in him, at least for the meantime. That's gonna be it for this video though, guys. Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed, if you learned something, make sure to like, comment down below what you thought about this. If you think that power creeping is going to be an issue, if it's not, make sure to leave a like, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe. Make sure to stay healthy, hydrate. Very hot these summer days, and I've been working very hard to kind of write through scripts and kind of figure things out when it comes to WutheringWaves. But if you made it this far in the video, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Make sure to check out the rest of my socials. I'll see you all next time. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night. YouTube and Crow Games thinks that you would like this video, so you should click on this video. And yeah, I'll see you all next time, guys. Really short one. I don't know why you're still here, but yeah, goodbye. See you guys in the next video. Thanks again for everyone that voted in the poll. Bye-bye.